Greetings, everyone. I hope you had a great week last week, and I hope that it was warm, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere, because autumn is seriously upon us. Going into winter slowly. Minimum temperatures are in the single-digit territory now, and over the next 3 or 4 weeks, they'll be going strongly down, and then even further down over the next month or so, and we'll only get some relief next year in about 3 or 4 months. So brace yourselves if you live in Europe. But I'm not here to talk about temperatures. I'm here to talk about sanctions. And I will not be, lashing out at sanctions, which I have done for many years, because until very recently, I didn't believe that sanctions worked. In fact, I strongly disagreed with the belief that sanctions could ever work, because if we look at the available evidence from Iran and Venezuela, for example, the latest evidence, and even Russia actually, the only thing that sanctions seem to be achieving these days is, make life miserable, a lot more miserable for a lot of people, instead of, changing their lives ultimately for the better. But it's the Russian sanctions I want to focus on today because, as I said, until very recently, I didn't think they were working. The evidence was right there. Uh, but then I was just thinking how Europe is. The European Union is working on the eighth package of sanctions and on the ninth package of sanctions, and I'm sure there will be a tenth package of sanctions. But the thing is, which the European Union is openly admitting, they are running out of things to sanction. It's kind of sad. So I was thinking about this the other day, and it hit me. And what hit me was a pine cone because it was standing under the pine tree that is right next to our house. And needless to say, I will never ever stand under this tree ever again. But with the pine cone, a thought hit me, and it turned everything upside down. Imagine that what the European Union is doing is actually a brilliant, a genius plan to punish not just Russia, but all its friends with it. It's a very simple five-step process. I have decided because five sounds good. And the first step is really just that: sanction Russia, which is incidentally your biggest energy supplier. Then you'll see your energy security go to hell. You will see people's electricity bills go through the roof in completely another direction. You watch your businesses struggle, and so on and so forth. That's step one. Step two is sit back and relax while all this happens, while the effect of sanctions on Russia come to boomerang on your economy. People are struggling to pay their bills, so they can't consume as much as they could previously. Businesses are losing their competitive advantage over Chinese businesses and other businesses from other places because of their energy bills, which they cannot afford. So, step one, sanction. Step two, sit back, relax, and watch the meltdown. Step three, once the suffering of your businesses and your voters, your citizens, reaches a certain point, which is, the point of very likely civil unrest and massive bankruptcies, uh, you step in and say, I have a plan. I will give you billions upon billions of euros in state aid to help you cope in these hard times. For example, households will have the deal of paying for 11 months of electricity and getting one free. It's a classic scheme. People fall for it very easily. And businesses will get what is effectively a price cap for the natural gas they consume. Of course, what nobody is saying is that all the money all these billions for the state aid will come from loans that will then need to be paid, and the only one who's paying state debt are households and businesses. It's not the government, because governments change, and anyway, they don't produce anything to get revenue. What they produce are taxes. Okay, so that was step three: step in and help. But because you've waited until a point where pain is very difficult to reverse, the effects of your first and second step are beginning to spill out into other economies. And I'm thinking here about possibly the biggest supplier, the biggest exporter to Europe, and that's China. And China happens to be a friend of Russia, so it needs to be punished as well by, guilt by association and all that. So because your markets are shrinking, your people, your citizens cannot continue to be the same healthy, robust consumers of Chinese goods and solar panels that they used to be just a year ago, then China's economy is suffering too. Isn't that genius? I told you it was genius. Of course it's genius. If you want to make China suffer, you don't get more original than that. Make yourself suffer so China can suffer and Russia can suffer. Okay, but that's just step four. You see China's economy being affected by your sanctions on Russia that have boomeranged on your economies and reduced purchasing power and competitiveness of businesses. And then comes the final step, which is really a continuation of step four, because these sorts of ripple effects that the European sanctions will be having on China will be rippling across the global economy. Every economy will be hit. Already, a lot of economies, a lot of countries are suffering the consequences of European decision making. Like, for example, Pakistan cannot afford LNG because Europe is getting all the LNG available out there and paying top dollar for it, which Pakistan cannot afford because it doesn't have such deep pockets. And it will get much worse than this. And in step five, we will see the European economy collapse, the Chinese economy collapse, possibly the Russian economy collapse finally, and probably every other economy that is not based on bartering around the world will collapse as well. And this will be a win for European sanction making and decision making. You might say that the price is too high, and I will hear you and tell you that yes, probably this is too high a price. But the end justifies the means. I mean, it's one of the oldest Europe originated doctrines of political action still in effect, if you think about it, the Jesuit doctrine that the end justifies the means. And there's another piece of wisdom passed down the ages, and that nobody is really sure where it originated, whether it was ancient Persia or probably ancient Spain, the Iberian Peninsula. But in any case, what it says is take what you want and pay for it. And this is what we will have if the process of punishment really progresses along these five steps, which you have to agree is the only reasonable way to expect things to happen. Because we want Europe to win, don't we? There may not be a Europe to celebrate this win, but we will win if this happens this way. I wish you a good week next week, and again, may it be comfortably warm.